I'm Tyler Austin from Gungnir Strategic. Thank you so much for watching. I'm finally getting to this AMA Ask Me Anything. I meant to record this last weekend, but unfortunately I got a little bit busy and just wasn't able to do it. But I'm finally getting to it. Thank you to everybody who sent me questions. I have a bunch of good questions here that I'm going to answer, mostly from YouTube and Instagram, but I got them from other platforms as well. So thank you to everybody who sent me in questions. So I don't want to take up too much of your time here, and I'll just go ahead and dive right on into it. So I got several people asking me about how I like the PSA Jakl. I've had that Jakl for about 5 or 6 months now, and I have right around 600 rounds, give or take, through it. And it has become a gun that has really grown on me. I really, really like that thing. When I first got it, I liked it, and I thought it was a good design, but I wasn't terribly excited about it. However, the more I've shot it, and especially the more I've shot it suppressed, the thing has really grown on me, and I really, really like that Jakl. Mainly because it makes such a great suppressor host. That long stroke gas piston design, along with its really nice adjustable gas block. They even sent me another one, or it came with another one that is specifically for suppressors too, so you can tune it even further for suppressor use. So the thing just makes for a beautiful suppressor host. And again, the more I've shot it suppressed, the more I like it. It is just much less gassy and much less overgassed than your typical DI AR-15 that's suppressed. So the thing's fantastic, and I really like it, and I've had no reliability issues out of it. I'll leave it at that because I actually have a full review of the Jakl coming out hopefully by the end of this week, so definitely be sure to keep an eye out for that. Moving on to question 2, I also had several people reach out and ask me about more or less what was my favorite part about the ShivWorks seminar I recently attended. If you don't know, I recently attended a few weekends back a Shivworks EWO, so their Edged Weapons Overview class, and I really, really liked that class. It was a fantastic class. So if you are looking to learn more about the use of and the defense of knives within obviously a self-defense context, definitely put that class on your to-do list. Edged Weapons Overview by Shivworks was a phenomenal class, and again, if you carry a blade for self-defense, I highly suggest you attend that class. It was fantastic through and through. With that being said, what was my favorite part about that class or seminar, whatever you want to call it? Honestly, probably the dinner after. Craig and Brian's his co-instructor, myself and several other people from the class went out to dinner Sunday night after the whole class was over, and we had dinner, and I really enjoyed having dinner with the instructors in the cadre of whatever class I attended. That's a fairly regular thing. If you don't attend a lot of classes, you may not know that, but it's a fairly normal thing for the instructors in the cadre to go out and have lunch or dinner after the class has concluded, and have dinner or lunch with whoever attended the class or whoever wishes to go out and get dinner or lunch with them. So that's a fairly regular thing, and that tends to be my my favorite part of any class, simply because I enjoy talking with the instructors on a more personal level and having more personal conversations with them and learning more about them personally, rather than just the persona, if you will, of them instructing the class, or their instructor side of them, if you will. So Craig and I had a really good conversation on everything that's going on in the world today over dinner, and I just really enjoy that. So having dinner with Craig and Brian afterwards is probably my favorite part of the seminar, if I'm being honest. It tends to be my favorite part of any class, really. It's just something I enjoy doing. Moving on from there, I received a pretty lengthy question regarding women's self-defense from a guy on Instagram. He made it very specific to him. He was wondering how he could get his wife into self-defense and where he should send her to, or what she should do for self-defense, whether she should go out and do like Muay Thai or kickboxing or jiu-jitsu, or should all of her self-defense be weapons-based. and all sorts of things regarding like her specifically. I just decided I'm going to talk about women's self-defense in general here, simply because not only would it answer his question for the most part, but also it will be more beneficial to everyone else listening. So let's go ahead and talk about women's self-defense, because I have some pretty harsh pills to drop if you haven't heard it. So women's self-defense. I got bad news for most of you. 90% of women's self-defense is complete and utter bullshit. It just is. If you watch these classes or attend these classes, what you'll see is that the majority of the class is focused around teaching some form of kickboxing, dirty street tactics, or fight tactics, or techniques, whatever you want to call it, like eye gouging, scratching, kicking people in the balls, all sorts of silly shit like that. Very cringy grip break techniques, as if some guys are going to walk up to you, grab your shirt, and just stand there and do nothing. Stuff like that. And this does a great disservice to women, and quite frankly, it's a tragedy, because at best, the women who attend these courses and these classes, at best, is just a waste of their time and money. At worst, it gives them a false sense of ability and security. So it really is a travesty that a lot of these classes, or at least the majority of what's taught in these classes, is complete lunacy. The entire idea that you're going to teach your average woman in a 4, 6, or 8-hour course or class or seminar, whatever you want to call it, how to kickbox her way out of a violent encounter with a man is completely ludicrous. It's delusional at best. Here's the reality. The average woman cannot hit the average man hard enough to do any sort of real physical harm to him. Quite frankly, the average woman can't even hit the average man probably hard enough to even faze him. That's just the truth. That's just the reality. Call me sexist, call me whatever the fuck you want, but that is the reality of it. So now I can already hear some retard in the comments section, typing away, going, well, what about Ronda Rousey? What about Ronda Rousey? Ronda Rousey, you kick the shit out of any man. And the funny thing is, Ronda Rousey proves my point. In order to find a woman that would have any sort of chance at beating up a guy barehanded, the average guy barehanded, you have to go out and find not only a athletic freak of a woman, because Ronda Rousey is an athletic freak in terms of like the female bell curve of athleticism. She's more masculine than she is feminine, just again due to the bell curve, right? Just because of her athleticism. But on top of that, she's an extremely athletic woman who has dedicated her life to mixed martial arts and fighting. That's her entire life. That's what she does full-time, day in and day out. So in order to find a woman that has a chance of beating up the average man, you have to go and pick an athletic freak who has dedicated her life to fighting and is arguably the best, if not just one of the best, female fighters in the world. Could Ronda Rousey kick the shit out of the average male? Probably. But the funny thing is, if you stuck Ronda Rousey into a ring with even the shittiest male UFC fighter you could find, that male UFC fighter would wipe the floor with Ronda Rousey. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry, there is a gigantic disparity of force between men and women. Again, call me sexist, call me whatever you want, but that's just the reality, and to deny that is at your own peril. So with all that being said, what should women do for self-defense to better prepare themselves to defend themselves primarily against an aggressive male who actually truly intends to do her harm? Well, I have a few suggestions. Number one, in terms of like empty hand martial arts, if you will, I would highly suggest she goes out and learns jiu-jitsu. Now, I want to put a gigantic caveat on this. I am not saying a woman should go out and learn jiu-jitsu for the context of self-defense, that is. So that way she can take a man to the ground and try to submit him, choke him out, armbar him, or whatever. I am not saying that whatsoever. I think within the context of self-defense, women should go out and learn jiu-jitsu so that way, in the event that they get taken to the ground, they have a better chance and they have a much better ability to either A, get themselves off the ground and get back to their feet, ideally, or at the very least, get themselves in a better position on the ground to better be able to deploy weapons. So, for example, if a woman is walking down a parking lot or in a parking garage and some dude sprints out between two cars and tackles her ass to the ground, if she is knowledgeable in jiu-jitsu and well-practiced in jiu-jitsu, she is going to have a significantly better chance of escaping that ground entanglement, i.e., getting out of that position and getting back to her feet, ideally, or at the very least, getting into a better position on the ground to better deploy a weapon. Her chances of that, if she knows jiu-jitsu, go up significantly. Going further from jiu-jitsu, I think women's self-defense should be heavily weapons-based, because a weapon, particularly a blade or a firearm, is going to equal the playing field quite a bit in terms of the disparity of force between a man and a woman. So I've already said that the average woman cannot hit the average man hard enough to do really any major physical harm or, quite frankly, even phase him. However, if you put one of these in her hand, right, this is a El Nino from Shivworks, by the way, so shout out to Craig and Brian, all of a sudden, that punch that otherwise wouldn't do shit to that guy, especially a guy who is extremely aggressive and is actually intending to do her harm, suddenly that punch now becomes an extremely, something that can do extreme bodily harm, if not death. So this changes the game significantly for her. So now that punch that otherwise wouldn't do anything, now is going to cause extreme harm. And on top of that, if she disengages the clinch or gets us out prior to a clinch or whatever, this is a lot more of a psychological deterrent than just her being like this. I'm sorry, for a guy who, especially a guy who's significantly larger than a woman, but quite frankly, if a guy is intending to do a woman harm and she puts her hands up like this, it's not going to deter him one bit. However, if she has this in her hand, suddenly this becomes a massive deterrent. And on top of that, especially with these push dagger type blades, this requires very little skill to use. You punch at him and you keep punching at him, primarily towards his face, chest, or any other target of opportunity he gives you, especially if you're within a clinch, right? And you just keep punching. And again, you don't really have to train anybody with this. I could put this in the hands of a 5-year-old and he could do some pretty serious damage to somebody with this. So relatively easy to use, extremely lethal, and definitely helps even the playing field between a man and a woman. That's for sure. Moving on from there, of course, firearms are another phenomenal option, of course, for women. I mean, women should, if they're willing to, definitely get training and carry a firearm, because this is even better in a blade in a lot of circumstances. Maybe not within the context of a clinch, of course. However, a firearm is definitely a good deterrent, because no longer can she just do damage within hand's reach. This allows her to reach out and keep people away from her. So different tools for different purposes, of course. If she's willing to carry both, phenomenal. Hopefully she is willing to carry both, because it gives her options, a lot more options. But regardless, firearms and blades are a woman's best friend when it comes to self-defense against a man. So outside of jiu-jitsu, so just kind of recapping here, I think women should go learn jiu-jitsu so that way they can improve their ability to better their position or get off the ground in the event that they get taken to the ground, which is highly likely, especially with certain types of assaults on women. And then from there, blades and firearms are going to be their best option from there. So yeah, jiu-jitsu and a lot of firearms and blade training, I think, is the best option for women. All right, moving on from there, Green Phoenix Tactical asks, besides your YouTube videos, do you teach in person? Is that a very cool private range or what? I am looking to compare the selection course for SWAT in the U.S. with ours in Argentina to update our courses. If this is your background, could you tell me how the selection is done for SWAT? If you don't want this to be public, I understand. Well, this is several questions, so I'll go ahead and just answer them individually. Besides your YouTube videos, do you teach in person? So the answer to that is kind of yes and no. I have taught many people how to shoot and things regarding tactics and so forth, so I have instructed in person, and I will definitely continue to do so. But it's all been on a private basis, either one-on-one with individuals or in small groups. So yes and no, however, not on a professional level, meaning I don't have, I'm currently not doing any open enrollment classes or anything like that. However, I definitely intend to do so, and it's something I want to do full-time in the near future. I primarily want to focus on team stuff, especially when it comes to things that aren't heavily available to civilians, in particular, like small unit tactics and up-to-date and relevant CQB and all that kind of stuff. I will probably also teach pistol and rifle classes because I have differing takes on how those should be done. That would certainly be different within the industry. But my primary passion, if you will, would lie on the team stuff. So small unit tactics and up-to-date relevant CQB would be the primary things, along with some other stuff that aren't heavily taught as well, like land navigation and so forth. Now, I'm not saying there aren't people who do that already. For example, with small unit tactics, Max Velocity Tactical does a lot of that stuff, and he does a phenomenal job, so shout out to him. If you're interested in that, I'd highly suggest you look his way. For CQB, there are some companies who will teach civilians, at least to a certain extent, up-to-date and relevant tactics. Condition 1 groups, one of them here in the U.S. So, but there isn't a lot of them. So that's something I want to be the change, if you will, within the industry. Next, you ask, is that a very cool private range or what? It is private. I won't call it a range, so to speak, because technically I'm really the only one allowed to shoot there. It's actually a property of a good friend of mine, and technically how he has the land set up with like the town and other stuff, I don't even really know what to call it in terms of like the legal aspect of how he has the zoning isn't the right word, but how he has the property zoned. They can't have a public range on it. So I'm really the only one who's allowed to shoot on it, and I occasionally will bring people there too, friends of mine or someone I intend to teach how to shoot or whatnot. But really, I'm the only one who's allowed to shoot, and if anyone does come out there to shoot, they're generally with me. So it's a private range, but really just for me. Moving on to your next question, you ask, I am looking to compare the selection course for SWAT in the U.S. with ours in Argentina to update our courses. If this is your background, could you tell me how the selection is done for SWAT? If you don't want this to be public, I understand. So I do not have a SWAT background. I'm not an LEO or in law enforcement in general. So that is not my background. I'm just a civilian with a lot of training under his belt and a lot of knowledge who is looking to share that, hence the channel. However, if you are looking to talk with an experienced SWAT guy and a SWAT instructor, I would highly suggest you reach out to my buddy, Rob, over at Daisho Tactical. He's a 20-plus year SWAT guy and a SWAT instructor, so obviously he has that background. I don't know what he would be willing to share with you, but if you are looking to reach out to somebody with that background and obviously that knowledge and experience, I'd highly suggest you reach out again to Rob over at Dice Show Tactical. Now, with that being said, understand that that policing in the U.S. is decentralized, meaning that every state, and in this case, every SWAT team, is going to be different. And even SWAT teams in the same state might be very different, especially in bigger states like Texas, where you're going to have a lot of SWAT teams. So understand, if you talk with one SWAT guy, you're likely going to get a very different answer if you talk to another SWAT guy in the U.S., especially they come from different teams in different states. So that's very decentralized, which is a good thing. And there are a lot of SWAT teams out there that are very competent and very up-to-date in their tactics and such. And there's a lot of teams that aren't, probably the majority of them, just being honest. So just understand that. So if you're talking to a SWAT guy in Texas, you're going to get probably a very different answer than if you're talking to a SWAT guy in Iowa or something. It's just, again, it's decentralized, so understand that everything might be different. The selection process will probably be different in terms of what they teach, in terms of SOPs, tactics, etc. will be different. It can vary wildly, so that's just something for you to be aware of. But again, if you want to talk to somebody who's knowledgeable and actually knows what they're talking about, reach out to Rob over at Dice Show Tactical. All right, and finally, the last question. Greg from Instagram asks, what are your go-to red dots for both rifle and pistol? So my go-to red dots are going to be those from Primary Arms or Holosun. I've been using those things for years, and I have yet to kill one, and my experience with Holosun and Primary Arms optics has been nothing but good. They're fantastic. They're reliable. I have nothing bad to say about them, and I use them pretty much exclusively at this point. I have nothing against the higher end manufacturers like Aimpoint, for example. They make phenomenal red dots and optics. They're great, and if that's the route you want to go, good for you. But on a practical level, I can buy 2, maybe even 3 Primary Arms or Holosun red dots for the price of 1 Aimpoint. So I can red dot 3 different rifles for the price of 1 Aimpoint. So practically speaking, Primary Arms and Holosun is just the way to go. And especially for the price point and the durability and the quality of their optics, it's hard to beat. I haven't killed one yet, and I use my gear hard. So if I was going to kill one, I would have killed one. I'm sure I'll kill one eventually, but as of yet, and with all the years I've been using them and all the different versions of Holosun and Primary Arms optics I've used, they've been nothing but good to me. So they are definitely my go-to, and I highly recommend Holosun or Primary Arms for your optic needs. They're just fantastic, and their quality, and they're just right for the price. With that being said, I don't have any particular one that I go to. I use all sorts of different versions and models of their red dots. I have a bunch of different ones, so there's not one that I only buy this model or whatever. With that being said, I've been experimenting and using a particular Primary Arms red dot that I've been liking a lot over the last 2 months or so, and that is their 25 millimeter Classic series. That thing is a whole $130, and that thing so far has been fantastic. I really, really like it because it has that 25 millimeter lens, and I originally got it for another rifle, but one night I used that rifle and that red dot, under night vision, and I absolutely loved it because that 25 millimeter lens made it very easy, or made it easier to shoot passively under night vision. So I immediately took that red dot and put it on my main night vision gun because I liked it so much. And I've recently got another one too, to put on another gun. The only complaint I have with that red dot is that it doesn't have shake awake, which all my other primary arms and Holosun red dots have. So that's kind of annoying because I have to manually turn it on every time when I want to use it. So compared to the other ones that have shake awake, that's kind of annoying for that particular red dot. But again, for $130, that thing's been kicking ass, and I really, really like it. So that's one I've been playing with recently, and so far I really, really like it. But yeah, in terms of optics, I highly recommend primary arms or Holosun. I think you just can't go wrong with them. And at least from my personal experience, they've been nothing but good to me. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Thank you to everyone who sent me questions. Hopefully I can do another one of these in the future because I actually do enjoy doing these quite a bit, actually. I find them fun and interesting. So hopefully I can get another one of these out in the near future. I hope you found this video helpful and informative, if not entertaining. If you did, please like and subscribe. I'm Tyler Austin from Gungnir Strategic. Thank you so much for watching.